Hi, in this video I'm going to go over some new ideas for the war game. It's pretty clear that most of you are struggling with getting this done. We're actually going to devote most of this week to getting this, giving you some extra time to get this finished. And I hope this video will help with that process. So what I have here is a working game of war from one of your classmates. And you'll notice that he just added two new classes, player and war game. Now, you don't need two player classes. You'll have two player objects of the player class, but you don't need two player classes. The war game is the class that controls the action of the game. So in many ways, the war game class is similar to the deck tester class, and you could actually use your deck tester class as with modifications, obviously, as the starting point for your I want to get this up where you can see it. As the starting point for your code. So here, you want to make a deck, and you want to shuffle it, and from there things would change. But those two parts, sections you could use. So let's look at how this works. I'm not going to show you the code, that wouldn't be fair. But when I notice he's got a couple of methods here, so he's got a method that he can test one round. He can test his war code, whereas when you have the two cards are the same, that are compared. But let's look at auto game. I actually added some code here that would produce this graphic output. So these represent the two players' hands and or stacks of cards, and down here we have just a textual output of the size of each player's stack, but up here just a graphic representation of that. So looks like player 2 may lose this, but we're not going to wait and see. Right, so you don't have to do this. What you should be doing, though, is outputting after each round of play, what each player's stack size is. And I can just scroll down the screen. I just added some code that allowed this stuff to all stay at the top. Okay, so now let's look at this. This should be familiar to you. But I'm going to suggest some modifications based upon feedback that I've had from talking to people. I'm going to suggest that you not use deck classes for each of the players, and that we rethink this. This could be called the table or war game class. So again, that just like the code we were just looking at, there are just two new classes here: the war game table class and the player class. And we have two objects of the player class. And the table class, I'll just call it the table class, has a deck object, right? So let's, instead of using deck objects of the deck class, which seems to add a level of complexity, which is not good at this point, let's assume that this represents an array list of card objects, right? So each player would, to keep things simple, we can always make things more efficient after we've got it working. We're going to say each player has an array list of cards. And the table class also has 2 array lists of cards. Right? Okay. So how does this work? Well, we create the deck, right? And then from the deck, we distribute out the cards to the 2 players after we've shuffled the deck. This player gets 26 cards, and this player gets 26 cards. Now, just because there was some confusion from one group about how to do this, let's look at how to do this. So after shuffling the deck, we could create a card variable, let's call it C1, is equal to test deck, which is just the name of the deck object in this code, dot deal. And if you look at the deal method in your deck class, it will return the top card on the deck. So now C1 contains that top card. So if we want to give that card to player 1, we would have previously declared, I've done it up here, object P1 and P2 of type player. Right, this particular example has a static void main method. This would be done in the constructor of your war class. Don't let that throw you. Right, this would obviously, these would be declared as a field. And so now we would say P1 dot, now in the player class, we'd want a method like get card that would take a card, it could be called get card, it could be called anything, which will get a card from the dealer, so to speak, right? So we'll pass in C1 there. And what that code would do is it would take a card from here, from the deck class, let's say this is P1, and it would add that card to the array list of player 1, right? Literally using the add method. And so if we did this inside of a loop, and we had, and we simplified things a bit, we could just do a for loop here, which I want to write out the for loop, but I'll just do pseudocode here. Loop 1 to 26. And inside the loop, we'll do p1.getCard. This would be, need to replace this with test deck deal, right? We can do it all at once here instead of splitting it out into a separate line to get the card. And then p2 dot get deck text deal, right? So 26 times it's going to give a card to P1, P2. And so that's going to, right, sequentially move cards out from here into that position, the next one, right, until both of these array lists of cards are filled up, or they each have 26. Right, or at least don't really get full. So they each have 26 cards. Okay, cool. Now, at that point, we start playing the game. So what happens here is, now here's where you can do something which is not efficient, but for simplicity's sake and to get these programs working, I suggest that you do it this way now. So you just, from the 0 position, you pull a card over and you put it here. And you pull a card over from here and you put it here. Right, and that's going to be very similar to how you just pulled cards from the deck class and moved them over here. Slightly different, but this concept is the same, and you should be able to figure out the code. Right? Now, the reason that this is not an efficient way to do it is when you pull that 0 card out, all the other cards are going to have to shuffle down. So that's a lot of work behind the scenes, but that's okay. It's easier. And so with the traditional game of war, you do 3 cards. So this would happen 3 times. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Right? And then a 4th card, which is the face-up card. Right? So each of these array lists would have 4 cards in them. Now, at this point, you compare, using your compare to method, these 2 cards. Right? And whoever has the higher card, if there's a higher card, whichever has the higher card, then all 8 of these cards are then added to that person's array list. Right? They're added at the top, and that works just fine because we're pulling cards from the bottom. Right? And now, if there's a war, in other words, if these 2 are the same, then we just pull another 3 cards from each array list. Right, 3 from there, and another 3 from here, and then the face-up card, and the face-up card, and those are compared. And again, whoever wins, if there's a winner, all of the cards in both of these array lists go over to that player's array list of cards. Right, and you're going to need some code in here that as you're pulling these cards from each player, you're checking to see if the player has run out of cards, if their array list is 0. And if so, the game's over and the other player wins. Okay? So that's it. I think this may make it significantly easier for you, but if you have questions, let's get this done. Try to get this done by the end of the week, right? And if you're stuck, please get in touch with me. I have a lot of time this week to help you. So I'm glad to do Skypes, but you're going to need to put in the time to work through the issues involved here. Thanks.